kind of war could not be preserved just inside the borders of Bosnia and Herzegovina. People in Kiev reminds me on Sarajevo just few days before the war in Bosnia. The most important and the most required right now is just to eliminate possibility of the new war.
Hello, Senad Pechanin. Really nice to see you again. Welcome to Debates on Europe and Debates Digital. You're joining us from Sarajevo, where you are practicing as a lawyer, but you're also a long-time journalist. I'm so happy to see you again. I just wish it would have been something more pleasant that we had to discuss. Last year, Milorad Dodik, the Serb representative in the presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina, started to signalize that he is no longer accepting the state building, the state construct of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And as a representative of the Republika Srpska, he even hinted to the possibility of secession. He has done this in many different ways, for example, in the context of a conflict with the High Representative and the introduction of a new law forbidding the denial of genocide, the genocide that took place during the Yugoslav wars in the 1990s. From the perspective of here where I'm sitting in Vienna, it seems that Bosnia and Herzegovina hasn't been so close to breaking up since the Dayton Agreement was signed in December 1995. But what does it look like from your vantage point in Sarajevo?
Thank you, Karl-Henrik, for having me in this dialogue. Yes, you are right. The Bosnia and Herzegovina is just in the very challenging, very difficult position because the peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina is under big threat and danger produced by a leader of Serbs entity in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Republika Srpska, Milorad Dodik, who announced that he would like to practically destroy the constitutional architecture of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which was established according to the Dayton Peace Accord, which was signed, as you said, in 1995. Situation is very delicate because if he really continues with something what he already announced, it would push Bosnia and Herzegovina to another war, unfortunately. Milorad Dodik announced the disbandment of the army of Bosnia and Herzegovina and the formation of the army of Republika Srpska. He also announced the formation of its own courts and prosecutors' offices, then formation of its own tax agency, drugs agency, simple destroying the core basic of the constitutional order in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which was established after the Dayton Peace Accord signed just as you said in 1995. It will definitely be casus belli, unfortunately, for the new war in Bosnia, and problem is that definitely that kind of war could not be preserved just inside the borders of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Two other multi-ethnic, multi-religious states in the region of the Western Balkans, I think on Northern Macedonia and Montenegro, will be the next, I'm afraid, field for war battles. And that is something which really raise much concerns between all people in Bosnia and Herzegovina particularly, but same in Macedonia, Northern Macedonia and Montenegro. That is something I think which is after the actual current crisis in Ukraine. This is the most threatening state of affair which influenced stability and peace in practically in all Europe.
But some commentators, including the first High Representative, the Swede Carl Bildt, some commentators say that, well, Dodik has done this for a long time, and this is just rhetoric that is aimed to boost him ahead of the general elections that will be held in October this year. Are they wrong?
Unfortunately, I think yes. It's true what many analysts, including former High Representative Carl Bildt, said that is rhetoric which we're witnessing for years now. Very nationalistic rhetoric which denying the war crimes, terrible war crimes, including genocide committed during the war in Bosnia. But this time he went even far, because practically all these crucial decisions was already adopted in Parliament of Republika Srpska, with postponed period of activation of these decisions. We have never seen such a deep crisis just right now, and I think that is unfortunately not something that we could just explain as nationalistic pre-election usual rhetorics. No, things went much further, and I'm afraid that is the real serious threat to the stability and peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
But what will actually happen if the National Assembly of the Bosnian Serb Republic will vote to withdraw from the army or from other important authorities, such as the tax authority, for example? What is then left of the rule of law in Bosnia and Herzegovina? And is there any way to stop this in a non-violent way?
It depends on reaction of the international actors. Obviously, there is no any doubts that all his policy and his attempts is full destroying of the constitutional order in Bosnia and Herzegovina. There is no doubts about that. But on the other hand, what could his attempt to implement decision what he announced means? It practically means ethnic division of Bosnia and Herzegovina, in which the majority of people, or in Bosnia and Herzegovina, or ethnic group, one of the three main ethnic groups in Bosnia, Bosniaks, with their Muslims identity, practically would be put in position that they have just small piece, about 23% of the territory of Bosnia, which is not territorially connected and compact. And many analyses compare that possible scenario as forming as process of making European Palestines from of Bosniaks or Bosnian Muslims. And I think that people understand here that it's simple. No way that solution could be realized without war. There is no peaceful solution for implementing this nationalistic project of Milorad Dodik, which is fully supported, of course, which is impossible without support of Serbia, and fully backed by Russia.
Yes, speaking about Russia, Dodik was not so long ago in visiting Russia, and he even talked to Putin. What is the Russian, or what are the Russian interests in Bosnia?
Russia's interest is to maintaining lasting instability in the Balkans, which is Europe's soft belly. He has been succeeding in this for years, thanks to the passivity of the European Union and United States in the region. We have been witnessing for years now kind of very dangerous influence and impact of Russia which is mostly generated first through Serbia and particularly through the leader of Bosnian entity Republika Srpska, Milorad Dodik. Simple, they for the goal of the objects of Russia interest is to produce instability in this part of Europe, building his global influence. Crisis in Ukraine is just, I think, the main proof that just through producing the almost wars in Ukraine and in the Balkans, he wants to force West to negotiate with Russia about how he is saying legitimate interest about Russia to resume as global, not only regional power. And I think that is the core of his influence in the region.
And there, both Ukraine and Bosnia plays a role. You were just actually the other week visiting Ukraine, doing a reportage for Montenegrin television. What is your impression? How are the citizens of Ukraine preparing for the possibility of a full-scale war? How are they dealing with that prospect? Can you see similarities to the atmosphere in Yugoslavia in the mid-90s?
Unfortunately, yes. I spent 5-6 days in Kiev, and I simply couldn't escape from the feeling that Ukrainian people in Kiev behave on same way as people in Sarajevo in Bosnia just few weeks or few days before the beginning of the war in Bosnia. Simply, it's very well known feeling for me, because I remember that myself and all my friends, colleagues, family, nobody couldn't believe that war is possible in Bosnia in 1992, particularly in Sarajevo, but generally in Bosnia. Unfortunately, it seems that is in human mentality to try to reject obvious signs of very dangerous development, which could bring the war in their lives. In that sense, people in Kiev reminds me a lot on Sarajevans just few days or weeks before the war in Bosnia. It seems that they don't believe in possibility of the war, of the continuing of aggression from Russia, and I'm very worried about their destiny if obvious scenario would continue in this regard.
And even here, it seems that the international community is kind of decisive, at least, of how these things develop. Coming back to Bosnia and Herzegovina, you were saying that the international community, the EU and the United States play a big role here. The United States have actually already put sanctions in place against Dodik. Sanctions from the European Union seem very unlikely, since some leaders, including Hungary's Viktor Orban, is against that and has promised to veto anything like that. What is the role here of the international community and perhaps of the EU in particular? Is this about military presence? Is it about something else?
Unfortunately, we have witnessed lack of interest, real interest of the European Union for not only for Bosnia, but for the whole region of the Western Balkans. And of course, that empty space was filled with the influence, which is definitely not contribution to the stability and peace in the Balkans, primarily from Russia, but at the same time from China, Turkey, and some Arabic states. That's one very confused policy and approach from the EU towards the region, in which it seems that they are interested just to preserve, however, peace in the region without the real ambitious will and readiness to integrate the region of the Western Balkans into the European Union. That's the excellent space for very radical right-wing political activists and actors in all region, and we know very well what were the consequences of strengthening nationalism in the end of the last century in the former Yugoslavia. And now it seems that, thankful just to the lack of engagement of the European Union and US too, it seems that all the region was set back in the past 90s of the last century. It's very challenging situation because the consequences of the possible war in Bosnia could not be preserved just inside the borders of Bosnia. There is no so big deal to prevent the war in Bosnia. The Western community, the EU, UK, and US could succeed in it very easily. It's enough just to bring a few thousand additional NATO soldiers to Bosnia, particularly in one small city, Brčko, which is district of the state of Bosnia and Herzegovina, just to preserve peace.
So this is actually the acute present to preserve peace and prevent war. There are, as referring to Carl Bildt again, he has suggested that, well, it starts to become about time for the international community to withdraw from Bosnia, actually, and to leave it to the Bosnian leaders and the Bosnian political parties to solve these conflicts and come to common agreements among themselves. There are reports from the outside on Bosnia 26 years after the end of the war. The GDP of Bosnia is still about a third of the average in the European Union. Corruption is widespread. Many people leave the country, not at least young people. In what way is Bosnia in need of reform at the moment?
First of all, I'm not sure that Mr. Carl Bildt is just right person to propose simple withdrawing of the international representatives from the international community from Bosnia. I would remain that just in the days of happening, executing genocide in Srebrenica, he was sitting in Belgrade with Slobodan Milošević and Ratko Mladić, and he failed to prevent what he should. In that regard, it's impossible to bring stability not only in Bosnia but in all parts of Western Balkan without much stronger a role of the EU and the US. Why? Because first, in case of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Dayton Peace Accord had extremely important meaning for Bosnia because it brought peace. But unfortunately, at the same time, it brought Dayton's constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is practically undermining all attempts to create a multi-ethnic citizens state which could function in one proper way. Of course, nationalists in Bosnia, they kidnap that constitution and they keep it frozen, and without foreign pressure by the EU and the US, it is still impossible to change. That is not absolutely just coincidence that the strongest support for preserving current apartheid situation that we still have had in Bosnia, coming from Russia, Hungary, and some other nationalistic European leaders.
But what is then the solution?
I think that we could speak and we should speak about few different phases of the international engagement here. The most important in the most required right now is just to eliminate possibility of the new war. It could be done in just few days. It's enough just to bring few thousand, if not few hundreds of the NATO soldiers on the soil of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it will be much easier for everyone, every citizen of Bosnia and Herzegovina to live with knowledge and mention that the war is impossible. That's the first thing. Extremely important, but unfortunately, even it's very obvious, we still don't have proper reaction from the West. The second thing is just to unfortunately things in the Balkans go just in that way. The policy and approach stick and carrot. You should not consider Serbia as a cooperative candidate for the membership in the EU. Simple, much stronger involvement and reducing the huge space for the malign influence of Russia would be a solution. Of course, without changing Dayton's constitution, it's impossible to have a prerequisite for the normal functioning of democratic states in Bosnia, which could guarantee at least the minimum of the basic human rights for every people, regardless of their national or ethnic or religious background.
Thank you, Senad, from Sarajevo, giving us these insights into two of the places that might decide the future of Europe: Sarajevo, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karl-Henrik. It was my real pleasure to speak to you.